Alexander Canario with a big game for the Cubs led them to a spring training win over Milwaukee. And we're going to talk about why the center field battle is so interesting now that you add Cody Bellinger to the mix, because there are some really talented players. Some of them could end up released or in AAA Iowa. Also, Ryan Stenk rumored that the Cubs had interest. The Athletic says not quite yet. The price isn't there. We're going to get into that as well. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Hit the bell so you know when we're doing new Cubs content. Thanks for being here, if I didn't tell you that already. Now let's get this thing started. Go Cubs! What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs Baseball channel. I'm your host, Mick Gillispie, and it is a pleasure to talk to you today at Broadcaster Mick on the socials. All right, it's been pretty exciting. Cody Bellinger officially introduced today to the writers and the media, and everybody's excited. Jed Hoyer was on stage with a guy that he had been battling with to get this deal done, and not Cody Bellinger, but his agent, Scott Boras. And they were sitting on either side of Bellinger talking about a little bit about the negotiations. Hoyer said, hey, we wanted the guy on the team pretty much the entire time he was up there talking, right? And of course he did. And we knew that. I mean, all of us were kind of with him. Hey, can we get this deal done? So he got a big raise, Bellinger. The Cubs feel really good about this deal. It's $80 million unless Bellinger opts out, $30 million, and $20 million. I don't know that he'll go the distance of this contract. If he plays well, he'll probably opt out and look for a larger, bigger contract with more years, right? But let's talk about this year's team and what's going on with this roster. And the reason why I thought Alexander Canario's day was so big for the Cubs, it just shows you the impact that he can have. Now, he didn't play center field. He played left field. And he had an RBI base hit, and he had a play where he threw a runner out at the plate. And it shows you in one game kind of the impact that Canario has on the field. And I've always thought of him good in center field, better in left field. He gives you that option of having someone that can play the center field spot, but also the corner outfield spot with the power and the big game and big play ability. And it was nice to see that. Cubs beat the Brewers 6-1, first time that Craig Counsell has matched up against his former team. But that happens all the time in baseball. Maybe not for managers as much as it does players, but it's part of the business, right? A lot of guys become free agents and sign somewhere else. I'm interested, and I'm actually going to go to the game when Counsell plays at Maryvale, which is where the Brewers' home field is in the Cactus League, to see what kind of warm welcome that Counsell gets. And then, of course, there's the time that he goes back to Milwaukee and plays there for the first time. But after the first time, maybe the second time, that fans even forget that you're even there and move on. The center field battle, though, we're talking about this because there's people that feel like, and it's been kind of a mixed bag. Some people that I respect that cover the Cubs feel like Pete Crow-Armstrong isn't going to make the team out of spring training. And I think that that's a fair assessment. I even heard, and I've talked about this on a couple of videos ago, Boog Sciambi and JD, Jim DeShays on the Marquee broadcast talking about that. But here's what I think. Craig Counsell continues to say and continues to hint that nothing's been decided with this roster. If they really felt like, and I mean Craig Counsell and the Cubs front office, that Pete Crow-Armstrong wasn't going to make the team, they would indicate that in those pressers because they would want to tamp down the expectations. And of all these other guys that are playing, Cody Bellinger, who just signed and plays center field, and he's done a really good job of it over the years, right? Alexander Canario, saw him in yesterday's game, what he brings to the table. Mike Tauchman, saw him last year. Bit of a journeyman, but a Chicagoland native, someone that I thought really helped the Cubs last year do the things that they were able to do. Of those guys, you got some decent to good defenders. Pete Crow-Armstrong is the best of those guys. And if you're trying to win every day, some are going to say, well, he needs to go get at bats in AAA. Yeah, but at bats at AAA aren't going to help you win at the big leagues. And if there was one thing that we learned last year, every game matters. Every game matters. The beginning of the season games and the end of the season games, the games in April and the games in September and October, they all count the same. And if this guy can come in and play a little bit of defense as he gets comfortable playing in the major leagues, and that defense is at a different level than the other players that are there capable of playing, plus running the bases, there should be a spot for him. He's only going to get better. And I know some of you are going to go, well, he went 0 for 14. He didn't look good at the plate. He made mistakes. Yes, he did. He did in his first taste of big league experience. But what you're going to find out, and I'm willing to really sit on this, just like I've told you guys over and over again, that the Quas deal is going to be a bad deal, that you're going to look back on it and go, you should have kept Nelson Velasquez. Should have. Or gotten a better deal for him. Pete Crow-Armstrong is one of the reasons you make that trade, because he is electric. He's a difference maker. And I just feel like he's got a really good chance to make this team. So then what happens, right? You got, how many outfielders can you keep? Because you've already got 3 penciled in with Happ and Bellinger and Seiya Suzuki. If everyone goes through this healthy, someone's going to be in AAA, right? So it could be Pete Crow-Armstrong and it could be Alexander Canario. Or maybe there's a scenario where you make a trade. Maybe there's a scenario where you release someone, which would be Mike Tauchman, who actually had a really good year last season. And a lot of you feel like the job should inherently have been his, right? Bellinger's going to play first. I think he's going to DH a lot more this year than he did last year. We'll find out if I'm right. But with all of that said, this is the exact problem that you want when you put a roster together. You want competition. And when I watched Canario doing the things that we know he's capable of doing, and then throw Brennen Davis in there, who I haven't even considered a candidate, and he's on the 40-man roster. But you can tell the way that he's playing that he knows that his time with the Cubs and his future in baseball are riding on a solid spring training. He's a guy that could get traded. I just don't see him forcing himself past Pete Crow-Armstrong and past Alexander Canario to make the team. But anything's possible because you got a brand new manager that may see things differently than the people that have been in the organization. So, but Brennen Davis, I love the focus that he has right now. Had a double a couple of games ago. He gets to second base, and you can just see in his eyes how focused he is. Not doing any of the, all this stuff, which I do love, by the way. But that's not what he's there for. He knows that he's in a race and he's far behind and he's got a lot of ground to make up, and you can feel it when you watch him play. So he's kind of a wild card in this. When he was coming up through the system, liked the way that he played right field, didn't think it was elite, thought it was good, had power, but wasn't consistent, had the ability to come up with some big plays, but I didn't think that he was super clutch. You watch Pete Crow-Armstrong had the game tying hit, and if Pete Crow-Armstrong would have been running the bases on the hit with 2 outs, he would have scored or he got it thrown out trying to do it. He wouldn't have slid past third base. And that's the thing that you're going to really love about him, is that the guy plays like his run is to win the World Series every single time he's out on the bases. And then I think that's what makes him so amazing. Got great instincts, great jump. So we'll see what happens. But that center field battle, now that Cody Bellinger's back in the mix, changes even more. I just don't think that this Cubs roster would have been nearly as dangerous as it is now if they would have not re-signed Bellinger. And that's why I kept telling you guys from the beginning, be patient. When you heard from on other shows where they were constantly wanting to fold and give all the money up and and just give in. And I heard the term stare down a lot. The Cubs are playing a game of chicken. Cubs are playing a game of try to save some money so that you can go sign better players down the road and not get absolutely demolished in a trade, in a signing with Scott Boras, like has happened in Major League Baseball time in and time out. All right, final topic on today's show is that it appears the Cubs are out on Ryan Stenk, or maybe this is another one of those maneuvers that the Cubs have so gracefully performed this offseason. Stenk, part of that Astros bullpen, would be a great addition. Sahadav Sharma of The Athletic, who has just done a fabulous job, by the way. He and Pat Mooney kill it at The Athletic. Wrote a story that was talking about the Cubs may not be done making notable additions to the bullpen. That's something I've heard Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins both allude to in different interviews. I think that is still very possible. I got a feeling that the Cubs are possibly willing to make a trade in that area or go out and be creative as far as signing someone. But the point of the story is that the money isn't quite right for Stenk. So you're talking about Stenk, a 32-year-old, 2.90 ERA, 27% strikeout rate, and a pretty clutch pitcher. So we'll see who else is out there. But it just doesn't feel like the money is flowing like it has in years past. And I'm telling you, I've heard people say, hey, wait, the revenues are up. Why aren't they spending money? Revenues are up, but also the amount of money with inflation that you have to pay if you're an owner to keep the ballpark open for staff, for the beer, for the cups, for all of that stuff. Yeah, that's expensive too. On top of the fact that the TV revenues, which we talked about as well, are drying up. So we're kind of in a market shift right now. But are the Cubs really out on Stenk? I don't know. This could be another one of those, hey, we got the right deal for you, we'd figure it out. And are they willing to go over the luxury tax? I think there's like 8 teams that have done that. Maybe they do. But you take a hit for that. And we'll see how willing that the Cubs are. But you could also follow the same game plan that if you sign them for a 2 or 3 year deal, you could copy what the Dodgers did and just backload that. And I think we all learned a lesson from them as well. All right, thanks for hanging out with us here on the Cubs Baseball Channel. Want you guys to like and subscribe. I really appreciate you being part of what we're doing here. And I want to remind you that we're grateful to the Tennessee Smokies Team Store for sponsoring our channel, right? SmokiesBaseball.com/store. They've got some great stuff there. The guy that's in charge of the store, his name's Kenny, and he loves to go out and find very creative, cool stuff that is either Cubs or Smokies related. Plus, the baseball card store that they have is incredible if you like to collect cards, and I know I do. So find out for yourself, SmokiesBaseball.com/store. Thanks for hanging out with us. And again, go Cubs.